Welcome to the Lighthouse Financial Advisors Money Over 50 podcast with Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Lighthouse Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. I'm Michael Hogue. Today's topic is career changing later in life with Cathy Boyce. Cathy is a client of mine. This is the first podcast where we've actually had a client on. And what we wanted to talk about today, we see a big shift of our clients and people in general that are making career changes later in life. And Cathy has done that recently, so we thought it would be fantastic to get Cathy in to talk today on the podcast to share her story. So welcome, Cathy.
Thank you. It's fun to be here and talk about what I've been doing, because it's a crazy ride that I didn't think I was ever going to be doing. If you had asked me 5 years ago whether I'd be having a career change, that would be something I'd go, no. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride and it's been interesting and I'm loving it.
And why did you say that you 5 years ago you would never have considered this? Is it because of the way that you've always been brought up, I guess,
I guess you had us on a plan. No, I've always worked and we've always, had the end goal in mind and things like that. And opportunity wasn't there at the time for me to make the change. But as life throws things at you and you begin to look at things a little bit differently, the opportunities were there for me to make a change in my own career, but also to help people. And I'm very much centred in my professional career about helping people and empowering people. I'm in the dental profession, and the opportunities that came along were just way too good to not jump onto. So That's why we had the career change. And of course, we never do, as you know, we never do anything without ringing up Hogue and calling into Hogue and saying, do you think this is a good idea? And I've done that lots of times as I've changed careers and jobs and things like that with you, as minor changes. Yes. And this was a fairly big one. And it was great because you could see into the future and you could see that this was a good thing. It would keep me employed for a really long time.
Yes.
That's
That's excellent. So for those listening wondering who Hogue is, I'm actually Hogue, so Michael Hogue. I get called Hogue. And sometimes I don't even answer to Michael. I'm called Hogue that frequently, so Cathy's referring to me. Yeah. So if you hear her mention Hogue during the podcast, she's talking about myself. That's an interesting one. So traditionally, most people, as you alluded to, Cathy, work towards an end goal. And just to share our side of your story, I started working with yourself and your husband David in 2011, and we had a little bit longer than 10 years to go towards your retirement. So we had about 12 or 13 years. So we're along a reasonable way along that continuum now.
We are.
So about 7 or 8 years along that continuum. And most people have traditionally thought about work as working full-time up until that date of retirement and then entering retirement. So it's very black and white for the traditional thoughts of retirement, where it's full-time work up until a point and then it's full-time retirement.
Yes.
However, what we're seeing now is a far more grey area of work and retirement. We are seeing a lot more people that becoming dissatisfied with with not making a difference. So it's really good that you said that it's really important to you to make a difference to people in their lives.
I think one of the things that on reflection, when you're doing the whole family thing and you're putting your kids through, high school, university, and getting married and all of that, there is not much freedom to be actually able to make changes because you've committed to the cause.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And once that era is over and you've got a few more years left, I don't feel myself ready to retire in 3 years completely. I don't know what I'd do. I mean, I've got projects. I love doing all sorts of things, but I just think that this is the time where I can actually work and love what I'm doing. And not that I've not loved what I've done, because I have, but this is just a really different way of earning an income and not going to work, so to speak, in inverted commas.
Yes.
Because I work probably harder now than I did when I was working a 9 to 5 days a week job.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem like work.
Yes.
I have to actually take breaks. I have to force myself to stop.
Yes, because you enjoy what you do
so many projects
so much, and you've got
on.
projects that are going on, and you're really passionate about the things that you do. So, look, that's really good to hear, because I mean there is a saying that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, and it does resonate with myself. I mean, I really love the difference that I make in my clients' lives, and it's really rewarding from that point of view. So, tell us a little bit about what you were doing before that in your career to date, and then what you've gone into just recently.
So I'm an oral health therapist. You always refer to me as a dental hygienist, but that's only one hat. Okay, so an oral health therapist is a dental hygienist and a dental therapist rolled into one. And so I spent the first 24 years of my life as a dental therapist. Then when we moved to Queensland, I had the opportunity to do the hygiene upgrade through Queensland Health, so I did that. And then from then I started working in public and private practice at the same time. Then a couple of years ago I did my Orofacial Myology training and saw an opportunity there for me to be able to continue to work after I had retired from clinical practice. And so, because that kind of thing really appealed to me, not the working in non-clinical, but just having the flexibility to be able to be my own boss for a bit.
Yes.
So anyway, that's when I made the switch to reduce some of my days at Queensland Health at the time, and dedicate a few days to the Orofacial Myology business.
Yes.
And then, of course, at the same time, the rediscovery of silver fluoride came along, and that was a product I used to use in the 80s, and I loved it, and it's a long story, but anyway, it's now back in production again. And because I had all of that experience, I was able to grab onto that, and then through a series of predestined meetings, I suppose you'd call them, I connected with the guy who invented it, who used to be one of the gurus down in Sydney when I was a young graduate, and who was my examiner. And then we now teamed up and we run professional development seminars on silver fluoride, the use of silver fluoride in Australia. Sure. And so that is now, I guess you'd call me on the speaking circuit, and I've been doing that now, for almost 12 months, and that's really enjoyable. So, yeah.
Excellent. So the silver fluoride side of the business, I guess, if we look at you doing two separate things now.
So I've got two businesses. Yes. So the Townsville Orofacial Myology Clinic is the business where I do the orofacial myology. I work clinically now 2 days a week as well for a private dental practice. And then I had to start a business. Isn't that crazy? I had to start a business to be able to do all of this, properly.
Yes.
Called Silver Fluoride CPD.
Yes.
And so I speak along with a dental, with Graham Craig, Dr. Graham Craig. I speak with him, we run seminars. I do the speaking, he does the organising.
Yes.
Or else I get contracted by organisations to go, private organisations or professional development organisations to go and speak. So.
And with the silver fluoride side of the business, so you're speaking, my understanding is you speak to dental practitioners or generally to provide them with the
correct
upskilling, I guess.
That's right. It's upskilling and education. And because I've been using it, I used it so long ago, and so I had the skills to be able to implement it straight away and the confidence because I knew the history of the product.
Yes.
And so I was able to then start using it straight away, getting amazing results. So I've got 2 years of case histories that nobody else has got in Australia because I actually got my hands on the product before it was released to the general public. It was past the TGA and everything, but because of my relationship with Graham Craig, I was able to start using it, and it's the results now 2 years down the track are just phenomenal.
Yes,
and that's part of what I'm teaching people. But I run a little Facebook page as well for clients and the general public to find out a little bit about it. Because it has revolutionised the way I do clinical practice and I'm primarily with children.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's pain-free.
Excellent.
And it's safe and easy and it's lovely. So
there's a statistic, Cathy, that podcast listeners really love to take care of their teeth. I'm making that up. I mean, I assume that. So just give us a quick explanation of the benefits of silver fluoride.
Well, silver fluoride is actually something that you use when you haven't been taking care of your teeth, or if your teeth are beginning to break down, or for some reason that you've got a problem, sensitivity or something like that. So when you've got a decayed lesion in your tooth, or an area which has not quite made the hole, but it is on the way to making the hole that you find on an X-ray, you can put silver fluoride on there, and the silver, being an antibacterial, will kill the bacteria because decay is a bacterial activity. So when you kill the bacteria, then the process stops from that sort of side of things. But then the fluoride part is actually then remineralises the tooth.
Okay.
And so you're getting this bacterial kill, but the silver actually is absorbed into the weakened part of the tooth. And then it stays in there and it continues to give a bacterial kill, I guess. So as more bacteria decide to come along, they get killed off as well.
Yes.
So the bacteria is stopped in its tracks and you get this ongoing protection for that area of the tooth, and the fluoride that's in that and then comes by way of your toothpaste or other applications, then actually remineralises the tooth. So you get this hardening of the area, and basically that can either then stop the process and then that's it, or it can stop the process and harden up the tooth, and then we can come along with our advanced white fillings and put that on top. But you are saving tooth structure. So you're not drilling out all the decay, you're killing it, stopping it, just cleaning up. For the little kids, I call it the burnt toast, because that area actually goes quite black, which indicates indicating the arrest of the tooth and the killing of the bacteria.
Yes.
And then we can cover that up. So it took me 17 months between when I started using it and when I had to give my first injection to a child to do a filling. That's huge when my whole basis, and at that time I was working full time, was all children.
Yes.
And it was 17 months.
Yes.
So one of the things that kids fear about going to the dentist is needles. And I mean, I give a really nice injection. I really do. I give a good needle. But if I don't have to, I don't need to.
You don't need to, yeah.
And the sensitivity side is where if the tooth is broken down for reasons that are not decay, it's like some kids, their teeth come through and they're not formed properly.
Yes.
They're called hypermineralized teeth or chalky teeth.
Yep.
And so when that has broken down, they're highly sensitive, and the just blowing air on a child's tooth for them to even eat. They can't eat ice cream. They can't eat on it. You can't blow air on it.
Yeah.
But this stuff, because when something is hypomineralized, it means it hasn't got enough mineral content, so it's weaker. But the pathway for the nerve, to the nerve for thermal conduction is very open, and they're very sensitive teeth. It's getting a bit techo, but what happens is the minerals in the silver and then the stannous that we put on with it actually blocks that all up. So those kids can eat, we can blow air on, and then after a couple of applications I can actually fill them without them having an injection, which is unheard of.
Yeah, that would be unheard of.
In the traditional.
I know that I think I can still remember the pain of the injection and the drill when I was at the...
Because it's always magnified when you tell the story when you're an adult.
Yeah, that's right.
But I love the side of fact that you're making a difference in kids' lives.
Yes.
You know, when kids can say, you know, oh man, I can eat and it's not sore on those particular teeth.
Yes.
You know, because sometimes those kids have never known what it's like to not be in pain with those particular kind of teeth. So
that side of the business at the moment is you educating dental practitioners around the country at the moment. So around Australia at the moment. Yeah. So you're going to speak in Adelaide. I know you've spoken in Brisbane. I think you've spoken at other different places.
In
Melbourne.
3 weeks. And
so you're speaking to dental practitioners in that to upskill them and educate them about silver fluoride.
Whereas the Facebook page is all about everything that I'm doing in community speak.
Yes.
So it's just like little stories about, you know, just for community awareness.
Yes.
Because the community is not aware of this kind of thing. The public isn't demanding it.
Yes.
And they should.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's funny you should say that. I mean, I can't remember the last time I tried to educate myself on teeth health. I go to my dentist and they prescribe whatever they prescribe, and I take that as gospel. So you're trying to lift the awareness from the end user point of view as well.
Exactly. I mean, oral health is now so connected and to systemic health that you can't deny what goes on in your mouth.
Yes.
The inability to be able to eat affects everything. Just as far as your nutrition, general nutrition gets affected, particularly in the elderly. And if they can retain their teeth, even if, you know, it means that, you know, they don't look all that great, but they've got something that they can use. They're not going to move into the denture phase.
Yes.
If they don't move into the denture phase, then they're more likely to have a really good diet, which means that their general health is going to keep stable. It just goes on and on. So that's where I am at this point in my life. And it's good. And I'm glad for all the listeners out there, the one thing I did tell Hogue very early in the piece is I made sure he flossed. Because remember that conversation?
I still remember. So flossing every day adds 6 years to your life, listeners.
Between 2 to 7 years.
Sorry, 2 to 7 years.
2 to 7 years. And I said to Hogue, well, I'm glad you do that because, you know, if I'm going to live a really long time because I look after myself, then I need you to as well. So you can manage
I've multiplied that by 3 now. I floss 3 times a day. I want to live 21 years longer than I was ordinarily going to. So, no, that's a fantastic. I mean, you can tell from the way that you spoke about silver fluoride how passionate you are.
Yes.
And you're at the stage now where you've really put 24 years into this or longer, haven't you? Like
Actually, it's 40.
40 years.
40 next year. Well, I graduated in 1980,
yes.
which is giving away a lot of secrets.
Yes.
But I don't feel like I've graduated that long ago.
No.
But yes, you're right. That preparation in the 80s that I had just because I lived in New South Wales, worked in New South Wales, and we had the experience down there, has been able to transfer into... And I guess I'm a bit of a go-getter. I took myself to the States. I did a course over there.
Yes.
And when I was at the course, they sort of said, you know, is anyone using silver fluoride? And I was able to put my hand up and say, yeah, because I am using it again. I'm
Yes.
from Australia, and we used it in the 80s, and what I'm doing over there is exactly what you're doing here, but you've got a name for it, and I didn't know that. And so it validated everything that they are teaching at that time, because
Yes.
I was already doing it and I was comfortable with the product. But, the funny thing is, they said to me, you need to go back to Australia and talk to this guy called Graham Craig, because he's taught us everything that we know. And they said, have you heard of him? And I'm going, like, yeah.
So you trained under him, did you say? Or he was your...
He was my examiner.
He was your examiner.
And he was our preventative dentistry guru when I was training. And so I hopped back on that plane, and then I thought, because he's not very young.
Yes.
And because I'm not very young. And so I decided that I emailed him and I said, we need to talk. And so basically we haven't stopped talking, and who'd have thought that him and I would have teamed up together? Like when you talk, when you're a nervous young student being examined, that in 40 years' time nearly, you would be teaming up and working together. Yeah. It's crazy.
So it really is a small world in the silver, especially in the silver fluoride world.
It is.
So you're in the States, and they told you that Graham had been training them unbeknownst to you at that point in time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which is really amazing. And of course, along the way, I've developed an approach to using silver fluoride for the clinicians to be able to use that, so that they can then explain that to their clients and have confidence in having a correct pathway.
Yes.
So that's called the ARMOR approach to caries management, but that is all philanthropic. So I've put a lot of time into that.
Yes.
But that's just a philanthropic exercise where clients clinicians can get on there, download all the resources to help them use the product effectively.
Yes.
So that's kind of been interesting and fun.
Yeah, fantastic.
So
we'll include some details about silver fluoride in the show notes of the podcast and the webpage. So we'll put down your website at that point in time. And I guess just a quick explanation of the other side of the business. So Townsville, Orofacial, Myology, TOfM. It's taken me a long time to pronounce that correctly. But
yes. So orofacial myology is basically, the simplest way is face physio. So when you have muscle weaknesses or incorrect habits or perhaps injuries that have occurred or have developed, then in an orofacial myology setting, that the muscles are retrained. It may be just how people swallow, not to get them to swallow, but how to swallow correctly, how to chew their food correctly to be able to swallow effectively. Especially seeing chewing is the first stage of digestion. Now, if people are missing that stage, then their gut health gets affected as well. And habit breaking. So if they've got incorrect habits, like even thumb sucking, finger sucking, or a tongue thrust swallow, that kind of thing. We actually, it's called neuroplasticity.
Yes.
So the brain is then rewired to be able to accept the new movements as normal movements. It takes about 4 months for that to happen. Very, very interesting. And
you work with the end user there, the patient in this particular case, don't you? So you're actually working with children in many cases, I understand, and also some adults too.
Yes,
to help them.
So patients can actually be referred by a provider, like a dental practitioner, medical practitioner, allied health professional, or they can self-refer to a myologist. And so they come along and sort of we assess them. Sometimes I assess the patient and then I have to send them off somewhere first so that I can, just say they can't breathe properly through their nose. They've got enlarged tonsils and adenoids and they need to be able to breathe through their nose so that I can teach them how to do everything else because that is optimal breathing. Yep. But if they've got a blockage, well, we have to deal with that first. So that's sort of a pathway. So oftentimes I'm used as a kind of not a referral source, but a troubleshooting.
Yes.
So we can start working on that. And then once they can breathe properly through their nose, then we can get them back and train them how to breathe, train them how to eat and breathe at the same time.
Yes.
Because a lot of these, especially little kids, they've never been able to eat and breathe through their nose. So they eat fast, they eat small amounts because it's exhausting. It's like, when you've had a cold and you go to chew and you think, look, that's enough because it's too hard. That's the life of some children.
Yes.
They can't sleep properly, they're snoring, so their whole quality of life is compromised. Growth, everything. And so, their ability to cope with things gets changed because they're not sleeping properly. It's their mouth breathing, snoring, spending half the night in a semi-awake state. It's really interesting. And the changes in their face after they've had that surgery and we teach them how to breathe properly is just amazing. As far as their eyes not just light up, but they actually move up.
Yes.
Like they're not got that tired, dark look in their eyes. They boom healthy.
Yeah.
I had one mum who, I showed her the before and after photos after we, he had tonsils and adenoid surgery, and then we had done 4 months of myotherapy, and I showed her the before and after pictures, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, he looks like he's on crack." Or he was on crack.
Yeah.
It was a 9-year-old.
It was like a mugshot that you see in on TV or something like that of someone that's a drug addict that's committed a crime. It was just drained.
It's interesting because when you're living with the child, you don't see those subtle changes until you do the before and after photos.
Yeah.
And it was still the same child, but the difference was he just looked healthy.
Pronounced.
Yeah.
So I can tell that you're really passionate about that side of things as well, and that's something that you've built up over many, many years, like the knowledge.
The knowledge to be able to apply it to the actual job, has been built up. There's a lot of psychology in orofacial myology, particularly when you're dealing with children and teenagers.
Of course, I can understand that.
And when you've got teenagers who have, just say you've got a teenager who's still sucking their thumb, okay? Well, that's not what you could consider normal.
Yes.
But what happens is that there's a reason for that. A, they enjoy it. 2, it settles them down and they get comfort from it. But a lot of those kids also know that that's not socially acceptable, so that they feel that there's something really wrong and why are they doing that, and they can't stop the habit. So helping them confront that, helping them get to quit the habit, and then guiding them through that next phase of life when they're learning to deal without that is really lovely. Yeah, and when you get the kids who are really committed to it, the outcomes are just phenomenal. And it's a journey, and it's the psychology. I'm glad I'm this old to be able to do that because I've got a lot of experience in that kind of field.
I can understand that and then sometimes it takes 30, 40 years of experience from the psychological point of view. And how to deal with that's right, and because I've raised kids and I've raised teenagers, so I can, and I'm a granny age, so I'm not perceived as somebody who hasn't been there and done that. Yes,
kind of thing.
Yes, excellent. So switching gears a little bit, and you mentioned you're a granny age. You are a grandmother.
I am.
I believe so.
3.5 times.
So 3.5 times. So changing tack into talking about flexibility, so work flexibility and career change. Part of the reason that you have made this move is because you're passionate about these two different sides of the business, of course. But when we spoke about it, we also spoke about the flexibility and being able to pick up and put down, which is I guess a theme that we talk to our clients about, especially when you are approaching traditional retirement age. Not that you're there yet, but being able to pick up work and put down work. And what that means is that if you want to travel for 2 or 3 months at a time, then you have the ability to do that by running your own schedule. Whereas with a traditional 9 to 5 full-time job, 5 days a week with only 4 weeks leave each year, you aren't able to do that. And additionally as well, part of your new businesses, we discussed that you could actually manage from abroad, which is a need for you because your daughter Lexi lives in Arizona, doesn't she? And
She does.
You have grandchildren over there.
Yes, I've got 2, and it doesn't matter how good your Skype and your Viber sessions are.
Yes.
It's not the same as holding them. And so I want to be part of their lives. I don't want to be this distant nana, and neither does David, who lives, on the other side of the world, and we don't get to see them. And it's going to be easier for us to get to them than for a family of, well, there are 4 now, and maybe later to all pop over and see us.
I can certainly understand that. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I would rather suffer water torture or bamboo below the fingernails than to put them on a flight from the east coast of Australia to the west coast of America. So I can certainly understand that.
Yeah,
it's easier for
it's
you.
just the cost too.
The cost is there.
The cost is there.
Yeah.
So, so, it was interesting when I went to the States for a month while Lexi had her last baby earlier this year. I was able to organise all my clients, my Orofacial Myology clients, and we Skyped in. And it was very successful.
Excellent.
It was seamless. The first time I did it, which was 12 months earlier, I had a few. It was a learning curve. It was not Skype the thing, but it was just getting everything organised. But now I know how to organise that side of things and set them up that they're ready, and all I have to do is they have a practice run. And as far as, we connect before I go to make sure that they've got that connection going. And then we can Skype in. And, for them, it's just a normal appointment. For me, it might be 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
That's all right.
But it provides you the flexibility to actually be in Arizona with your daughter and her husband and your 2 grandchildren, and being able to continue helping people in Australia, and also you just don't have to be bedded down in Townsville then, which you would have had to have been if you continued on with the traditional 9 to 5.
Yeah, that's right. I wouldn't take new clients in that realm, but I won't be gone for 6 months and that sort of thing. But I liked the plan that you had written down here for me to travel 2 to 3 times a year. I thought it was a lot less than that, so I was really happy when I read that. I must show that to David.
For everyone listening, we had a bit of a joke before we started the podcast because I had written down in the show notes, or I guess the framework of what we were going to talk about, that Cathy wanted to travel 2 to 3 times per year from Australia to Arizona. And she laughed because she said that her husband David had believed it was less than that. It was probably 0 to 1. So she's going to take these home and show him and make sure that he listens to the podcast. But I think I forgot to put up to 2 to 3 times per year.
Hogue, it's in black and white, and I've got the proof right in front of me.
So it's interestingly that brings up a point that I'd like to make. And we spoke at the start of the podcast about the tradition is to work full-time up until age 65 is the traditional age. People then tend to leave full-time work and go to full-time retirement from 65 on. What we're seeing is that certainly with yourself, Cathy, and some of our other clients and just people in general in Australia, we're seeing a push with our clients that are above age 50 now seeking career changes into careers that they're more passionate about, which we can tick the box for you for careers offering more flexibility. So that would certainly be the case in your situation. And careers where they can actually batch their work and pick up, put down work for periods of time as well. So one of the trade-offs that we've spoken about there, and you mentioned before that too, that you don't even consider this work, so you're being paid for this, but you don't consider it work because you're so passionate about it and you enjoy what you're doing. So, I mean, one of the trade-offs that we've spoken about, and financial planning is all about trade-offs. It's okay, we can factor in a pay cut, especially now leaving a full-time role, and starting any business owner will know that there is certainly a curve there where you're not making profit necessarily at the start, so you're learning things.
Yeah, and you're reinvesting back into yourself.
Into the business.
So even though like my profits, I'm reinvesting into my education or more equipment or more resources, and even though that doesn't look like it's a profit, I guess it's reinvestment.
It's reinvestment. It's a growth reinvestment. So one of the things that we've discussed is that you would be prepared to work in your new roles beyond the traditional retirement age, because you do like it, and it will offer that flexibility. So from a planning point of view, we're able to adapt to that because you will have an income for longer. It won't be as much as a full-time role generally, but you'll have it for longer.
I guess the thing is, if when I get to the semi-retirement age, we'd just be drawing down less from our superannuation and eating the rest. Yeah,
that's correct.
Continuing to earn, and I don't feel like I am ready. Like the thought of me stopping work in 4 or 5 years' time does my head in.
Yes,
really. Some people just can't wait, but I think I've got myself into a position and taken opportunities along my career path that means that I have the opportunity to do. Without knowing it, I've worked myself into this position.
Yes.
Yeah.
I read somewhere the other night, I can't remember the company, but they've become an overnight success, and the founder of the company said, I've been putting in work for 40 years with this company and suddenly I'm an overnight success. So that resonates with me in your situation. So you've been building up this knowledge over your whole career of 40 years, and suddenly you're able to use it and to start not one but two businesses out of that, and it's really you've apprenticed for 40 years, haven't you? Like in some of these, in your knowledge now, you've apprenticed for 40 years,
totally.
And you've now just come out of your apprenticeship time, and you're a tradesperson in these new fields, if we want to use an analogy like that.
That's an interesting concept, because I hadn't really. I mean, I knew that what I had done had worked myself, but I didn't sort of look at it as an apprenticeship. And I think there's a lot of people out there who can actually, if they look at what they've done in their work life and have a little bit of a drive, or a lot of drive,
Yes.
it depends, because can look at things and start thinking like that too.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want you to get inundated with people who are ringing up going, Hogue, what about we do this?
We're really happy for that, because the balance of life is important to us. In fact, it's number one here when working with our clients. So there's opposite ends of the spectrum, and one end of the spectrum is not doing anything towards your retirement future. The other end is putting everything that you earn into your superannuation, for example, and not getting the balance right. So neither of those extremes tend to work. So we really love to work with our clients, and for our clients to come to us with a problem, as in, I'm not enjoying work. I would really love to segue into this field that, in your case, is related but separate, and certainly separate when we compare full-time employment with one organisation to running two separate businesses that you can pick up and put down. So we're really, really pleased to talk to people about that, because it's all about a trade-off. And when you break it down and look at the trade-offs that you can make, there's generally always an answer that suits people. So with yourself and David, the answer is that David will work full time to 75 now. So no,
You're listening to this, darling?
I say that with tongue in cheek. No, not at all. You're both still on track to have the retirement that you wanted to, and you've put in the hard yards certainly over the last 8 years that we've been working together, and you're on a trajectory that certainly has you on track for that. So this is really just fine tuning for the balance of life here.
Yeah.
And like you said, the thought of actually you stopping your new fields in 4 or 5 years is something that you don't want to do, because you've really only just started after. If we use the apprenticeship analogy again, like you've only just become a tradesperson after 40 years of so certainly good financial planning is all about trade-offs, and we've found the happy medium here.
We have, and I'm really glad that we actually started this journey with you without sort of making it advertising for Lighthouse, but it is kind of, because I wouldn't be in this position if we hadn't have been actively seeking to get on track. We knew we needed to, and we had some kind of we had to find the right fit for us, and we did, and it's been quite a nice journey, an enjoyable journey.
Yep.
But it's been really one of those things where I wouldn't be able to do this had we not prepared.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And I've never been a sort of person that goes to work on a Monday and go, oh, I can't wait till it's Friday.
Yes.
That's not work.
Yes.
That's torture.
Yes.
So
yes, of course.
My mindset has never been like that, so I'm kind of happy to keep going.
Fantastic.
At this point in time.
Excellent.
As long as you keep flossing.
I certainly plan to be around for quite some time, Cathy. So yes, I am flossing.
Good.
Like I said, I've ramped it up to 3 times a day. So.
Crazy.
Look, it was fantastic talking to you today, Cathy. That's probably enough I think we've reached the point where we've discussed everything, unless there's anything else that you would like to say.
No.
Cathy will be having a podcast very shortly as well. So if you're not that we want to date this podcast, but it is July 2019. If you're listening to this in the future, well into the future, Cathy's podcast will already be up and running. So you'll be able to search for Cathy Boyce.
So what? Yeah, I've already got the name.
You have the name?
I've got
Share,
the name.
please.
I'm into it. It's called Beyond Brushing, Optimising Oral Health Outcomes. And
Fantastic.
This is not for clinicians, although they're free to listen to it. This is for the general public, because there is so much information that I've got in my head, and so many contacts that I have about, like we were talking about before, how what goes on in your mouth affects the rest of your body, even sleep and diet and nutrition and posture and breathing and teeth care. Yes. So I'm going to bring all of that together and be able to educate the public.
Fantastic name.
Beyond Brushing.
I think the name really sums it up. I mean, you can hear that Beyond Brushing name, and I can immediately picture. I can't picture obviously the finer details, but I can only guess that it would be about Beyond Brushing. So
yeah. And the optimising oral health outcomes is just one of those things where I think, we'll see how that goes. And
fantastic.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Look, certainly we've loved starting a podcast. It's fantastic getting the formal chance to to talk about certain topics, and certainly even the chance to talk to you today to share your story, because we really love to share people's stories. So thank you for being our first client as on the Money Over 50 podcast, and certainly.
I might have to have you back one day.
That would be fantastic. I'd be happy to speak on your podcast.
And we can talk about the importance of living life.
Yes, that's right. So that sounds great. We'll be sure to include the name of your podcast as well in our show notes, and that really puts the pressure on you now to get it started.
Does. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling the pressure.
So good luck with all of that, Cathy.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being a guest today on Money Over 50.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Lighthouse Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.